I could not believe what I was watching. 10 years of silence. 10 years of no calls, no visits, no nothing. Exactly the way they wanted it. And now here they were, inside my house, walking through rooms like they already owned them, talking about move-in dates like my answer did not matter. My father turned to me with that calm, certain voice I remembered from childhood. "We move in next month," he said. Not a question, a schedule. I stood there and looked at him, at my mother in my kitchen, at my sister in my hallway, and I smiled, not because I was happy to see them, but because in that moment they handed me the easiest decision I had ever made. My name is Zachary Moore. I am 28 years old. I have a burn scar on my right arm and the right side of my face. I have had it since I was 12 years old, and this is the story of what I did next. But first, you need to understand where I came from. I was 12 years old the night our house caught fire. Every Friday my parents had what they called their time. Dinner out, then the bar, back well past midnight. They did not believe in babysitters. My mother said I was old enough to watch my sister. My father said nothing, which was his way of agreeing with everything she decided. So every Friday it was just me and my 8-year-old sister Ava, alone in the house. I was asleep when our dog Astro started barking, not his usual bark. Something urgent, something wrong. I opened my eyes and the air already tasted different, heavy, wrong. I opened my bedroom door and the smoke rolled in. I did not think. There was only one thought in my head and it was Ava. I ran to her room first. She was already awake, pressed into the corner of her bed crying hard. When she saw me, her whole face changed. "Zach," she said, like my name was the only solid thing in the room. "I got you," I told her. "Cover your face. Do not let go of me." I picked her up and ran for the front door. The hallway bathroom door was partially open. As we passed it, a burst of flame rolled out into the hallway. I threw my right arm up to shield Ava's face before I even decided to do it. Before my brain caught up to what my body was already doing, I did not stop running. We collapsed on the front lawn. Our neighbor, Mr. Calloway, called the fire department and pressed a wet towel against my arm while we waited. That was the only time I let myself feel it. My 12-year-old body could not handle that kind of pain, and I screamed. I screamed and I could not stop. Ava had smoke in her lungs. I had burns across my right arm and the right side of my face. I remember writhing on that lawn, crying for the pain to stop. But somewhere through all of it, I kept thinking, my parents are going to be so relieved. They are going to see that Ava is safe. They are going to see that we made it out. They are going to come home and everything is going to be okay. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about a lot of things that night. My parents came home to police cars and a fire truck and 2 children on the front lawn. My mother ran to Ava first, dropped to her knees, pulled her close. My father stood behind her, hand on her shoulder, eyes on Ava. Neither of them looked at me. I sat a few feet away with a wet towel pressed against my arm and waited. They never came. When the police officer asked if my parents always left us alone on Friday nights, I looked over at my mother still holding Ava and said yes, they always made sure we were safe. It was fine. We were fine. I was 12 years old, burned, in pain every time I moved, and I protected them with my words without anyone asking me to. I have thought about that moment many times since. The fire marshal's report came 3 days later. A hair straightener left plugged in on the bathroom shelf. My mother's. She went very quiet when she heard that. She never spoke of it again. The debt came fast. Medical bills, legal fees, surgeries and skin grafts and follow-up treatments that stretched on for months. They lost the house, the savings, spent weeks in a motel before finding a small apartment they could barely afford. And through all of it, they needed somewhere to put what they were feeling. They put it on me. In the hospital, when the nurses changed my bandages, my mother stood over me. "Oh my God, stop crying," she said. "You are 12, not 2. Be a man, Zachary." My father looked at me with pure annoyance and left the room. I told myself they were stressed, drowning in debt, that people say things they do not mean when they are desperate. I gave them every excuse I could think of until I was 15. It was a Tuesday night. Nothing special. I was doing something when I heard my father's voice from the kitchen. "Would have been easier," he said, "if he had not made it out." There was a silence. My mother did not disagree. I sat on my bedroom floor and did the math on what I had just heard. I stopped making excuses after that night. Going back to a regular school after the fire felt impossible. The scar on my face was subtle enough that people might not notice right away. But my right arm, that was a different story. The burns there were severe and visible, and there was no hiding them. It was not my parents who suggested the homeschooling program. It was Ava, not out of concern for me, because kids at school kept asking her about her brother and she was tired of explaining. It was too embarrassing for her. My parents agreed immediately. It solved everything for them. No questions from other parents at pickup, no neighbors asking too many things, no reminders of what their negligence had caused. They hid me and called it a solution. I enrolled in an independent homeschooling program and studied on my own. Nobody taught me. Nobody checked on me. I just worked through it quietly and alone. By the time Ava was in high school, she had a name for me. Scarface, not behind my back, to my face, casual, like it was just what I was called now. I never responded to it. There was nothing to say. By the time I was old enough to work, Gary was already working, saving up for a PlayStation. I was saving for something else entirely, my freedom. I asked my father to teach me driving one day. He just looked at me with disgust, then turned around and said nothing. I never asked again. Why did I even ask him in the first place when I already know he wouldn't give me a minute of his time? So it was my best friend Gary who taught me how to drive in an empty parking lot on Sunday mornings. He spent most of it telling me I was going too fast, even when I was not. But he showed up every Sunday until I had it. When I started working at the gas station, he picked me up for every shift without being asked. The uniform had short sleeves, no hiding the arm there. People stared, some felt sorry, others could not hide the disgust. I learned to tell the difference quickly. But I kept showing up, day after day, because I had a shoebox to fill. 2 months before I turned 18, my father sat me down at the dinner table. "When you turn 18, you are out," he said. "Not a day later. Do not call. Do not come back. We will not be giving you the new address." My mother agreed and did not look up from her food. Ava picked up a small notepad from the corner of the table and drew a tally mark. She had been counting down the days until I left. My mother glanced at it and smiled. My father made a sound close enough to a laugh. I looked at the three of them and felt something I did not expect. Not anger, not grief, but relief. Clean and sharp and so overwhelming it almost made me dizzy. What they did not know was that I had been planning this for almost 2 years. Every dollar that was not absolutely necessary went into a shoebox at the back of my closet behind a pair of shoes my mother had long forgotten existed. I was not waiting for them to throw me out. I was saving to leave on my own terms. And Gary already had the guest room ready. I walked out at 18 and did not look back. They saw me leave. My mother was in the kitchen, my father was on the couch, Ava was at the top of the stairs with her notepad. Not one of them said a word. I was not expecting goodbyes. They had cut ties with me a long time ago. They were just tolerating me until the date on that notepad finally arrived. So I did what they taught me to do. I cut ties right back. The difference was, I meant it. I did not feel sorry for myself. I stopped feeling sorry for myself the day my father sat at that dinner table and told me not to contact them. That was the day something shifted in me for good. Not anger, not grief, just clarity. I was responsible for my own life. Nobody was going to hand me anything. Nobody was going to save me. And I was not going to let anyone, not even the 2 people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, destroy the future I was going to build for myself. They thought they were throwing me away. They were setting me free. Gary's parents had given him the family house when they relocated to another state to be near family. So when he offered me the guest room, it was his to offer. No asking permission. Just come. Gary had already graduated and gone straight to work by then. College was never his plan. I was still finishing up. The fire had cost me almost 2 years of school, and I had fallen too far behind to catch up the normal way. I worked the gas station nights and weekends and saved everything I could. I had taken my GED while I was still at home, studied on my own time and passed. The results came on a Thursday afternoon. I sat at my desk and looked at the screen for a long moment. There was no ceremony, no stage, just result on a screen in a bedroom in a house where nobody cared. I texted Gary. He showed up an hour later with a chocolate cupcake and a single candle. "I didn't know what flavor you wanted," Gary said. "You already know my favorite flavor," I told him. "I know," Gary said. "I got chocolate anyway." That was my graduation. It was enough. After I moved into Gary's, I started teaching myself IT, online courses after my shifts, certifications stacking up one by one. By 21, I had saved enough to move out. A cheap one-bedroom apartment not too far from Gary. Old building, thin walls, manageable rent. Mine. Gary helped me move in, which mostly meant he carried one box, looked around the empty space, and came back an hour later with groceries and a second-hand lamp. "For the wall," Gary said, setting it down. "So you're not just staring at nothing." That was the most furnished it got for a long time. But it was mine, and that meant nobody could take it from me. At the IT job, I wore long sleeves every day. The office air conditioning was brutal anyway, and the arm was mine to show when I was ready and not before. When I was comfortable enough, I rolled up my sleeve one afternoon. My coworker went quiet for a moment when he saw it. "Man," he said, "that must have been so painful." I smiled. "I'm just happy I'm alive," I told him, and I meant it completely. What they did not know, what nobody in that office knew, was which had been more painful. The burns on my skin, or the bridges burned by my own family. The higher-ups noticed my work early. I got promoted faster than most people in my position. Not because anyone felt sorry for me, but because they saw what I was capable of, and they rewarded it. I cannot tell you how much that meant to me. I moved to a better company, then a better title, then a salary that made me sit down when I read the number properly. By 26, I was ready for the next step. Gary called me one Wednesday night at 11 o'clock. "Okay, so Uncle Harold next door wants to sell his lot," Gary said, without any preamble whatsoever. "Right next door to me. Big enough for a proper house, backyard, pool if you want one. He needs the money fast. His son is getting married, and they want to help him buy a place up in San Francisco. Harold just decided selling the lot made more sense than maintaining it. You interested?" I opened the listing on my laptop. I did not sleep that night. I had been researching modular homes for months by then. Custom built, faster than traditional construction, smarter financially. You design exactly what you want and they build it off-site and install it on your lot. 4 bedrooms, open kitchen, a proper backyard. Everything I had in my head for years. The lot was big enough, the price was fair for a quick sale, and it was right next door to Gary. I called Harold the next morning. He was a straightforward man. No drama, no games. I went to the bank and applied for a mortgage. They approved me. I remember sitting in that chair thinking about the shoebox at the back of my closet and everything it took to get there. Look at that, I thought. It was worth it. The modular build took about 8 months from design to installation. 4 bedrooms, an open kitchen with good light, a backyard with a small patio, and 2 chairs that caught the evening sun perfectly. Clean, modern lines. Quiet street. Gary watched the whole process from next door with strong opinions about everything and 0 qualifications to back any of them up. "Are you sure about that wall color?" Gary asked one afternoon. "Yes," I told him. "It looks very beige," he said. "It is warm white," I said. "That is beige," Gary said. "Goodbye, Gary," I said. When it was done, it was exactly what I had imagined. Not flashy, not trying to impress anyone, just solid. Well built. Mine. It was the best thing I had ever built. A year later, a phone call came. It was my manager. Same company, senior position. Their Sydney office was expanding and they wanted someone they trusted completely to lead IT operations there. They wanted me. I asked for a few days to think about it. I loved that house. I loved my life. I was not going anywhere. Or so I thought. The first text came on a Tuesday evening. "Hey son, it's Dad. Hope you're doing well. Been thinking about you lately. Son? Wow. He called me son. I cannot tell you the last time he used that word with me. Not after the fire. Not once in all those years of silence and blame and bedroom doors. I waited for something to happen when I read it. Some warmth, some old longing stirring somewhere. Nothing came. Just the quiet certainty of a man who already knows exactly what is happening. He called me son because he wanted something. That was all it was. More texts followed. My mother this time, warm and chatty, saying she missed me. I read every one of them. I did not reply to any of them. The next day, my phone rang. It was my father. I answered, "Hey, son." His voice was warm, familiar, like we talked every week. Nothing came. Not even a flicker. "I'm putting you on speaker," my father said. "Your mother is here, Ava too." I said nothing. "Son," my father continued, "whatever happened between us, that was a long time ago. We should let bygones be bygones. We heard you were doing well." A pause. "We actually drove by your house. Zachary, it is absolutely beautiful. We are so proud of you." I stopped him there. "How did you know where I live?" I asked. "Oh, you know how it is," Ava said. "Someone told someone, and that someone told Mom." They had already driven by, already scoped it out before they even called. "Bygones be bygones," I said. "You know what? Yes, I did exactly that, but not the way you think." "What do you mean?" my mother asked. "You had my number this whole time," I told her. 10 years. You chose not to call, and now someone told someone that I built a house and suddenly you want to rebuild the relationship." I paused. "So let's be honest about what this actually is." Silence on the line. "We are your family, Zachary," my mother said. "We want to make things right." "I don't have a family," I said. Calm. Quiet. "The day you told me not to contact you was the day you burned those bridges. I don't have a family anymore. I don't love any of you." A longer silence. Then my father's voice came back, the warmth completely gone from it. "After everything we have done for you," he said, "after everything we sacrificed, we went into debt because of you. We lost everything because of you." I almost laughed. "You went into debt," I said, "because Mom forgot to turn off her hair straightener. You went into debt because you two left your young kids home alone on a Friday night. That is why you went into debt." I paused. "And you still have your daughter, your princess, because I ran back into that hallway and threw my arm up to shield her face. She is standing in that room with you right now because of me." I let that sit for a moment. "Remember that, Ava? I could have just left you there, but I didn't. And yet you called me names." Another pause. "What was it again? Scarface?" Nobody said anything. The speakerphone was completely silent. Then my mother's voice came back, softer this time. "Careful, Zachary," she said. "We are calling because Ava needs help. She needs stability. She is pregnant. Your house is perfect for the family." I sat with that for a moment. "Pregnant?" I said. "Yes," my mother said quietly. "Where is the father?" I asked. A pause. "He was an exchange student," my father said. "When he found out about the pregnancy, he went back to his country. We have not heard from him since." "Go after him," I said. "Legally, internationally. There are ways to pursue child support across borders. That is where your energy should go." "Zachary," my mother started. "Why am I being dragged into this?" I said. My voice was still calm, still even, but something underneath it had sharpened. "Why are you calling me asking for anything?" I paused. "You are asking for help from the same person you wished hadn't made it out of that burning house. Do you understand how that sounds?" Nobody answered. "You are not moving into my house," I said. "Do not contact me again." I hung up. The texts came within minutes, all three of them. Hurt first, then guilt, then anger, then something uglier underneath all of it. "After everything we sacrificed for you, you are turning your back on your own blood. You are heartless, Zachary." Then Ava, "I cannot believe you would do this to me. I am pregnant and you would just abandon me. You are heartless, just like your scars. Your heart is ugly too." I read that one twice. She knew the whole time. She was right there on that phone call and said nothing, and then the moment she needed a weapon, she used it. I sat with it for a moment. Then I typed back the only thing there was left to say. "These scars are the reason you still have that pretty face of yours. Remember that. Lose this number." Then I blocked them. All of them, every number, one by one. 2 weeks of silence followed, clean and quiet. I exhaled, told myself it was over. Then a cousin I had not spoken to in years texted me, relaying a message. The family wanted to have dinner. A chance to talk things through. Sit at a table like adults. I replied the same way every time they pushed. "No thank you." 2 words, that was all they got from me. Eventually the cousins stopped texting. And then 10 days later on a Saturday morning, someone knocked on my front door. They came anyway. Of course they did. I usually wake up early, but it was Saturday, and for once I had slept in. I was on my second sip of coffee, still in my pajamas, the morning light coming through the kitchen window, warm and unhurried, when someone knocked on my front door. Gary always texted first, so I looked through the window before I opened it. My mother, my father, 7 months pregnant, one hand resting on her stomach, standing on my front porch at 9 in the morning. Of course they came. I opened the door and stepped back to let them in. And that is why I am right here, standing in my own living room, watching my family walk through my house like they already own it. 10 years of silence, 10 years of building something real. And they walked through that door like none of it meant anything. They crossed the threshold and immediately something shifted in all three of them. I watched it happen in real time, my mother moving through the kitchen opening cabinets, my father standing in the middle of the living room with his arms crossed, doing the math on square footage, and Ava walking slowly down the hallway without saying a word to me, opening doors, looking into rooms, moving through my house, the way someone moves through a space they are already mentally rearranging. She stopped at the second bedroom. "This one," Ava said quietly, "this would be the nursery." Nobody asked me, nobody looked at me. I stood in my own living room and watched my family move through the life I had built like it was already theirs. My mother sat down on my couch without being invited to. "It is a good neighborhood," she said. "Quiet, safe. This is exactly what Ava needs. She needs stability. The baby needs space." Ava came back down the hallway and looked at me with something almost soft in her expression. "You know," Ava said, "you built this house and it is too big for just you. 4 bedrooms. All this space." She looked around slowly. "It is like you were waiting for us to come home." I looked at her for a moment. Then I chuckled. "Sure, Ava," I said. "Sure." She smiled like she had just said something true. My father uncrossed his arms. "We will be moving in next month," he said, in the same flat, certain voice he had used when I was 18, and he told me not to come back. Make sure the rooms are clean. The room went very still. I looked at this man who had left hospital rooms looking annoyed from my crying, who had said through a bedroom door that it would have been easier if I had not made it out, who had told me not to call and not to come back. That man was now standing in my living room telling me to clean the rooms. And something clicked inside me so quietly and so completely that it almost made a sound. "Oh, Australia, here I come," I thought. "This is the easiest decision I have ever made in my life. I love this house, but I love my peace more." I looked him dead in the eye. "No," I said. My father's expression shifted. That old look, that old stance. He took a step toward me. He was waiting for the flinch, for the silence, for the boy who used to make himself small whenever his father entered a room. That boy was not here anymore. I smiled, and I watched my father realize for the very first time that it was not going to work. "You are not moving into my house," I said. Calm, clear. "This house is mine. I designed it. I built it. I paid for every single thing in it without any help from anyone." "We will be here next month," my father said, harder now. "Make the rooms clean." I almost laughed out loud. "I'll think about it," I said. My mother shook her head. "Don't," she said. "Me and your father have already made up our minds. We will live here. This is for the family. It makes sense." My father nodded once. Ava looked down the hallway one more time, and I smiled again. They thought they were backing me into a corner. They had no idea they had already lost. They left shortly after. My mother talking about paint colors as she walked to the car. My father saying they would be in touch about the move-in date. Ava getting into the back seat carefully, not looking at me. I watched them drive away. Then I went inside and made 2 calls. The first was to my manager. "I'll take the Sydney position," I told him. "Excellent," he said. "We will start the paperwork on Monday." The second was to a realtor whose card I had kept from a neighborhood event. "I want to list my house," I said, "as soon as possible." "Oh my God," she said, and I could hear the genuine surprise in her voice. "I was literally just on the phone this morning with a client looking for a house in your exact neighborhood. Can you come in today? I can do 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock works," I told her. I signed the listing agreement that afternoon. That evening I texted Gary. "Hey, I got pizza and beer. You want to come over?" He showed up 20 minutes later with the pizza already ordered, another 6-pack under his arm, and the expression of a man who knew something was coming but had not yet figured out what. We sat on the living room floor, pizza box open between us, beer cold. I told him everything. When I finished, Gary put down his slice and looked at the wall for a long moment. "They told their landlord," Gary said, "before you even answered." "Yes," I said. "And your father told you to clean the rooms," he said slowly, "in your house that you built?" "Yes," I said. Gary nodded slowly and picked up his beer. "They're not going to stop," he said quietly. "As long as you are here and reachable, they will keep coming. They will not stop." "I know," I said. "Then this is the right move," Gary told me. "Go live your life, Zach. You have earned every single part of it." He took another sip, then a slow smile spread across his face. "I'm calling in sick the day they show up," he said. "I need to see their faces when they see that sign. That is going to be the most satisfying thing I have ever witnessed in my entire life." I laughed. A real one. "Now," Gary said, reaching for another slice. "The spare room in Australia. I need a good bed." "Firm. Medium firm. I have a bad back, apparently." "Good night, Gary," I said. "I'm very serious about this trip," he said. I shook my head, but I was smiling, because that was Gary. Through every hard thing, Gary showed up with pizza and made sure I remembered how to laugh. Some things never change, even when everything else does. The offers came in fast. The realtor called me 2 days after listing. Serious buyers. Multiple offers already on the table. She had been right. People had been waiting for something exactly like this in that neighborhood. The house was going well above asking. After paying off the remaining loan, I walked away with more money than I had ever had in my life. Not a fortune, but enough. More than enough. I started packing quietly. No announcements, no goodbye posts, just boxes and decisions about what mattered enough to take across the world. Most things stayed. The furniture went to Gary or to donation. The things that were truly mine, my hard drive, my certifications, my clothes, a few things that meant something, went into 2 suitcases and a carry-on. When the house was empty, I moved into Gary's guest room, the same guest room he had offered me at 18 with no questions asked. Some things come full circle. On the last day before closing, I went back one final time. I had the key still. I let myself in and stood in the doorway for a moment. The house was completely empty. My footsteps echoed in a way they never had when it was full of furniture and light and the life I had built in it. The kitchen where I had stood with my coffee on a Saturday morning. The backyard through the window with the patio and the 2 chairs long gone now. The hallway where Ava had picked out a nursery like it was already hers. I walked through every room one more time. I will not pretend it did not hurt. I loved that house. I had designed it and had it built and filled it with something real. And I was letting it go, not because I wanted to, but because the people who raised me would never stop coming. They would always find a way to reach through whatever life I built and remind me that in their eyes I would always be a burden, a debt, a mistake that survived. I was not going to spend the rest of my life defending what was mine. I stood in the empty living room for a long moment. Then I turned off the lights, walked out, locked the door behind me, slid the key through the mail slot, and did not look back. I stayed at Gary's until my flight day. He made it exactly as dramatic as you would expect. He insisted on driving me to the airport, even though I told him I could take a rideshare. He showed up with snacks for the drive that he ate entirely by himself before we even got on the freeway. He talked the whole way there about things that did not matter, and I let him because I knew he was doing it, so neither of us had to think about the fact that I was leaving. At the departures terminal, he helped me with my bags and pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than either of us expected. When he stepped back, he cleared his throat and looked past my shoulder. "Call me when you land," Gary said. "First thing," I said. He got in his car and drove away without looking back. I watched him go. Then I picked up my bags and walked through those doors. The for sale sign was already gone from the yard. Someone else's name was on the house now. And I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Gary called me 3 days after I landed. I had spent 3 days just breathing, learning the streets, getting used to the light being different here, getting used to waking up and feeling absolutely nothing pulling at me from the past. "Okay," Gary said. "So they came." I sat down. "Tell me everything," I said. And he did. So this is what happened. It was Monday morning. Gary had called in sick. Coffee, large bowl of popcorn. Settled into his front porch chair with a clear view of my old driveway and the sale pending sign in the yard before 9 o'clock. He was ready. The car pulled up at 9:17. My mother got out first, dressed like she was arriving somewhere important. She stood on the sidewalk and looked up at the house with the expression of a woman who had already decided how she was going to rearrange the furniture. Except she had not brought any furniture. Just suitcases. Because she was walking into a fully furnished house that belonged to a son who would not dare say no. My father came around from the driver's side, arms crossed before he had even fully straightened up. Then Ava, moving carefully, one hand on the car door, further along now, a bag over one shoulder, looking at the house like it was already hers. They saw Gary, surprised because they didn't know he was my neighbor. Gary smiled, even waved at them, ate a handful of popcorn and watched. My mother was the first one to see it. She stopped walking. She stood on the front path and looked at the sign in the yard, a big sale pending sign. She stared at it for a long moment, like if she looked long enough it would rearrange itself into something that made more sense. My father came to stand beside her. He looked at the sign, then at the house, then at the sign again. Ava came around the car and stopped when she saw their faces. The three of them stood there on the front path with their suitcases and said nothing. Gary ate more popcorn. The panic set in slowly. Gary watched it move across my mother's face first. Her eyes moved from the sign to the house to the empty driveway to Gary sitting on his porch with a bowl of popcorn in his lap. She walked over. "Where is Zachary?" my mother asked, and boy, she was getting angry. "He left," Gary said pleasantly. "What do you mean he left?" "I mean he is not here anymore," Gary said. "He's gone." My father had walked over now, Ava behind him. My father looked at Gary with an expression Gary recognized immediately. The same one Jake Moore had been giving him since they were kids. Like Gary was something that had shown up uninvited and refused to leave. "I never liked you," my father said. Gary looked at him. "Who cares?" Gary chuckled. "Where is he?" my father asked. "He is out of the United States," Gary said. "That is all you need to know." "What country?" my mother asked. The panic climbing now. "I'm not telling you that," Gary said. "Give us his number," my father demanded. "He has the same number he always had," Gary said. "You chose not to call for 10 years. That is on you, not him." "Tell us the company he works for," my father said. "I will contact them myself." "Absolutely not," Gary replied. "I will not let you embarrass him at his workplace. You have done enough damage to that man. We are his parents," my mother said, tears starting now. "We have the right to know where our son is." Gary looked at her for a long moment. "And I am his best friend," Gary said quietly. "I have the right to protect him." The porch went very still. "He cut you off the day you told him not to contact you," Gary continued. "And you know what? In all the years after that, he never once talked about you, never wondered how you were doing, never brought you up. He was happy, genuinely, completely happy. He was happy to leave that hellhole behind and never look back." My mother's tears spilled over. Ava was crying now too, standing there with one hand on her stomach, tears running quietly down her face. Gary watched both of them. He did not soften. "And by the way," Gary said, "he already had a job offer outside the country before you showed up that Saturday morning. He was going to turn it down. He loved that house. He had it built, and he loved living in it. He was not going anywhere." He looked at all three of them. "And then you came to ruin his peace. You walked through his house and picked out nurseries and told him to clean the rooms and handed him a move-in date like his answer didn't matter. You didn't just push him out of a house. You pushed him out of a life he actually loved." And he still left smiling. "That fool," my father said, his voice bitter. "He should have said something. We could have worked something out." "Say what exactly?" Gary asked, laughing now. "So you could demand he hand over the house he designed and built entirely on his own? He does not owe you his plans. He does not owe you his location. He does not owe you a single thing." "But we are his family," Ava said through her tears. "You," Gary said, and he looked directly at Ava. Not cruel, just completely certain. "You were there in that hallway. You know exactly what happened. You know exactly why his arm looks the way it does, and you spent years calling him Scarface and counting down the days until he was gone. He looked at her steadily. And now you're standing here calling yourself his family. Ava looked at the ground. Her shoulders shook. She did not say anything, because there was nothing to say. If he contacts you, my father said, still pressing, tell him I want to speak to him. Gary looked at him for a long moment. Sure, Gary said, but he won't call you back, said quietly, like stating the time of day. My mother made a sound beyond crying, something rawer than that. The house, my father said, his voice shifting now. How much did it sell for? Gary looked at him. $820,000, Gary said. Multiple offers. It went fast. Nobody said anything. My father's jaw tightened. My mother closed her eyes. Ava looked at the sale pending sign one more time. Gary let the number sit in the air between them for a long moment. Then my father's expression darkened. That old look. That old stance. He straightened up and took a step toward the porch. Gary stood up. He was not a small man. He looked at my father from the top of the porch steps with an expression that was completely calm and completely unmovable. I would love to see you try, Gary said quietly. My father stopped. Leave my property, Gary said. Right now, before I call the cops for trespassing. 30 seconds. My father looked at him for a long moment. Gary did not move, did not blink, did not look away. My father turned and walked back to the car. My mother followed, still crying, one hand over her mouth. Ava stood there one more moment, looking at the house, at the sale pending sign, at the yard that had been carefully designed and built and tended, something moving across her face that Gary could not quite name, heavier than guilt, heavier than grief. She looked away. Then she got in the car. They sat there for a while. Gary watched from his porch. Eventually the car started, and they drove away. Gary watched until they turned the corner and disappeared. Then he looked down at his bowl, empty. He had finished all the popcorn. He went inside to get more. That was what Gary told me. I sat in my apartment and listened to every single word. When he finished, the line was quiet for a long moment. Gary, I said. Yes, Gary said. You finished the whole bowl of popcorn, I said. It was a very large bowl, Gary said. It was a long morning. I regret absolutely nothing. I laughed, the kind that starts somewhere deep. Thank you, I said, for all of it, every single part of it. You would have done the same for me, Gary said quietly. Without blinking, I said, I know, Gary said. Now, the spare room, firm mattress, I'm serious about this. Good night, Gary, I said. Good night, Gary said. Enjoy wherever you are. I hung up, and I sat in the quiet of my apartment for a long time after that. A year later, Gary visited me. I picked him up from the airport and watched him look around and go quiet for a moment. Okay, Gary said. I see why you stayed. That evening, over food and drinks, he told me about my family. They found a 2-bedroom apartment quickly out of necessity. 3 adults and a newborn in a space that was never meant to hold all of them. Dad working to cover rent, Ava working to cover everything else, my mother watching the baby around the clock with no break and no space to breathe. Gary said they fought constantly, the kind of fighting that comes from too much stress and too little space and no way out, and still somehow they found a way to blame me. Ava had her baby, a boy. I sat with that for a moment. That child had nothing to do with any of this. He did not ask for any of it. I hoped he would be okay. I genuinely hoped that for him. After Gary went to sleep in the guest room, I sat alone for a while. Something made me open my old email address, the one I had not checked in years. There they were. Emails going back months. My mother, my father, Ava, sitting in an inbox I had never opened. All of them angry. All of them still pointing fingers, still rewriting the story, still finding ways to make everything my fault. The fire, the debt, the house, all of it. Still blaming the boy who carried their daughter out of a burning building at 12 years old. I read every single one. I thought I would feel something. The old ache, the old guilt, the boy on the bedroom floor doing the math. But instead I laughed. Not a cruel laugh, not a triumphant one. Just the genuine involuntary laugh of a man who finally sees things exactly as they are. They spent all that energy writing into an inbox I never checked. Oh well. My name is Zachary Moore. I am 29 years old. I have a burn scar on my right arm and the right side of my face, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. So there you go, folks. I hope you liked my story for today. If you did, please smash that like button and subscribe if you have not. Also, click that notification bell so you will know when there is a new story. Let me know where you are from. I would love to know where my story reaches you. Thank you for listening. This is Melodic Vengeance. I will see you next time. Take care, okay?
If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Don't forget to follow for more content just like this. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.